This is part 2 of the Craftsman King Seeley 150 drill press rebuild series. If you haven't seen part 1, click the link at the top of the screen. In this video we will continue with the disassembly. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff and welcome to my shop. We got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. Okay, so here we are with the spindle pulley assembly, and there's a piece of wood in there from when I used that wooden dowel to knock it out. So sometimes this inner snap ring here is really hard to get off. It was really hard to get off for me, and I ended up damaging it when I removed it, which is not a problem because I'm going to show you what a replacement part number from McMaster Car will work for that right there. So we'll be replacing that. And then we'll try to lift that bearing. It's not going to come off of there, so we're going to use a puller. Hit it with some WD-40. This is just a bearing puller that I got from, or a pulley puller I think it is, from Harbor Freight. Not crazy about Harbor Freight tools, but some of them, they work just fine, and this one does. So we're just going to lift that bearing up and off of the shaft. So there are two bearings on this, as we discussed in the previous video. And we're going to be replacing all of these bearings anyways, so I'm not worried about damaging them. And these are in fact the original bearings that were on this drill press when it was made. Because after I made this video, I wiped them down and they were new departures. So and there we go. So there's a sleeve that sits between the two bearings and that spaces them out. And then we've got the bottom bearing, and I just use 2 wrenches and kind of lift up on the bearing to get it to the point that we can get a puller under it. Sometimes that's enough to be able to just pull the bearing off of there, but not today. So again, we'll use the same puller and same technique. Now one of these pulleys, I don't remember if it's this one or if it's the motor pulley, but one of them's got a little bend on one of the sheaves that we're going to have to straighten out a little bit later. It's not a big deal, but I guess it was on the motor one. So this is the hub, pinion, and spring assembly, and we're just going to remove the feed rods and the feed knobs from it. These 2 rods are in there really tight. So we can get the knobs off. Now if you've got a stuck knob, once you get the rod out, you just put it in a vise and then twist the knob off. Like that one there. It's going to have to go in the vise to get it off. But these rods don't want to move. So we'll take this over to the vise to finish disassembling it. So there is a 1/4 inch pin that's going through the hub, through the pinion, through the spring, back through the pinion, and back through the hub. So we're just going to drive that 1/4 inch pin out. One end of that pin has got some splines on it, and it's best to try to put it back in. And we're able to pull the spring all the way out now and then twist the hub off. That's the pinion. So we're just going to place one of these feed handle rods in the vise and then twist the hub and get it off of there. Threads are in good condition. It was just really on there really tight. And the same for this one. So it should go without saying that if you strip out the hub, and you've got your work cut out for you then. The rods are easy to reproduce. That hub, not so much. So here we are with the quill and spindle assembly. And this is the incorrect screw nut and lock nut for this. So we'll be replacing all of that. That's not correct. But we remove it. And then we're going to remove the jam nut that's on the bottom of the feed stop rod. You can see that split in the feed stop bracket right where I'm pulling out the rod. And that was a design change later in the 100s, and it carried over into the 150s. So this is the spindle collar, and one side of this is flat and one side of this is conical. And that was a cone point set screw that we removed. So I'm just going to kind of break it loose. It's got a lot of grime on it there. And we'll take this over to the vise to work on it. So here we are at the vise. I'm going to go ahead and chuck in a large Allen wrench. This is, I think, a 9mm. Just line the flats on the Allen wrench up with the jaws in the chuck and tighten that down. That's going to make it easy to remove the chuck. So then we'll place the Allen wrench in the vise, and then I'm going to use a spanner wrench to remove the chuck. It's got that locking safety collar on there. That's the spanner wrench I'm using. And assuming everything is assembled correctly and there's nothing extra there, we should be able to just turn this locking collar and the spindle should come right out of it. There we go. Then we'll just use the key and remove the chuck from that Allen wrench and pull the Allen wrench out of the vise. So here is that spindle collar. It just slid off. And it is missing a rubber washer and a metal washer. And these are the McMaster car part numbers for each. So we will be adding those to the build. And here we're just going to drive the spindle down through the bearings. Sometimes that bottom bearing will go ahead and stay on the spindle and come out of the quill. And we'll just try to do this without dropping the spindle. But I end up dropping it because I'm a doofus. There it goes. If you do drop it, just make sure you didn't damage the taper on the end there. That's why we don't want to drop it. So now we got one bearing left inside the quill. So we're just going to flip the quill over and then use a wooden dowel to push that bearing out. Like so. We've got the quill stop or retaining ring. So we're going to remove that with the 2 pair of vice grips. It's got an opening on it, which is kind of facing me. I'm just going to put vice grips on each side of it and push them kind of away from me and lift up. And there we go. This is one of the differences between a 100 and a 150 drill press. The 150 has that stop retaining ring on there. So now we got that bearing left on the spindle. We're just going to let it rest on those jaws of the vise, and then push the spindle down through it. Again, try not to drop the spindle. This time I'm getting my leg much further under it to try to catch it. So after we get this bearing off, the only thing that'll be left on the spindle is the spindle thrust collar, and we're not going to remove it. We're going to leave it on there. So this drill press has a Supreme chuck on it, and we're going to disassemble it. And to disassemble it, it's a little different than a Jacobs. We push the sleeve, just the edge, the outer edge of that sleeve there, back off of the chuck. It's opposite of how a Jacobs chuck comes apart. So we can theoretically just rest the sleeve on the jaws of the vise and then tap the body of the chuck out through that sleeve. So we'll see how that works out. There we go. Boom. So there's your sleeve. You'll have a split nut just like on a Jacobs. There's half of it, and there's the other half. And then you'll have all three jaws. We'll go ahead and push those out. So these there were a couple of years where they utilized the Supreme chuck instead of the Jacobs chuck, but the majority of your Craftsman, especially the classic Craftsman drill presses, will have Jacobs chucks on them. They basically do the same thing, they're just a little bit different in how to disassemble and assemble them. If you've got any questions about that, I'll put a link for my chuck omnibus video here. And there are actually 2 videos in that series, and the second one is about the Supreme chuck. This Supreme chuck is a little different than that one, but it comes apart and goes together the same way. So once we've got one of the jaws out, the rest of them tend to work their way out a little easier. And I do like these Supreme chucks. I think they're a little bit more robust than the Jacobs chucks. It uses the same key as a Jacobs chuck, in case you're wondering about that as well. We're going to leave the locking collar on there. We're not going to disassemble it. So the last thing we're going to do in this video is remove the model number data plate off of the base. And there's 2 drive screws that are holding it on. We're just going to drive them from the back side. So we just need a little punch, like a 16-inch punch, and knock them out. Boom. So that's everything for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. In the next video, we'll be disassembling the motor. As always, I appreciate the support, and I will see you next time.